The massive ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning, its shadow stretching across half of Geneva like a dark cloud. Captain James Miller stood at attention beside other military officials, watching as the alien vessel settled above the United Nations headquarters. At 50 years old, with gray touching his temples, he'd seen his share of combat, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Quite a sight, isn't it? Admiral Wilson whispered beside him. Her weathered face showed no fear, only curiosity. The ship's landing ramp descended with a hiss of hydraulics, and Earth's first official alien visitors emerged. Miller's jaw tightened as he watched them duck through the opening. They had to, being nearly 9 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in sleek armor that made them look even larger, like walking tanks. The lead alien, who introduced himself as Ambassador Rex of the Stellar Empire, had to kneel down to shake hands with the UN Secretary-General. Even kneeling, he towered over the human delegation. His purple-tinted skin caught the morning light, and his 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he surveyed the gathered humans. Such tiny creatures, Rex said, his translator making the words sound almost gentle. We had heard humans were small, but this is unexpected. A rumbling sound came from the other aliens. Laughter, Miller realized with a flash of anger. The diplomatic meeting moved inside the UN's largest conference room, but even that felt cramped with the alien delegation present. Miller stood guard near the back wall, watching as humanity's representatives try to establish peaceful first contact. Everything went smoothly until the military presentation. As Earth's defensive capabilities were displayed on the large screens, the aliens' amusement became more obvious. They whispered among themselves, their massive shoulders shaking with barely contained laughter. "And these are your soldiers," Ambassador Rex interrupted, pointing at footage of U.S. Marines in training. "They're the size of our young children. How do they even lift their weapons?" The UN military advisor, General Thompson, kept his composure. "I assure you, Ambassador, Earth's combined military forces are highly capable." "Capable of what?" Another alien official cut in. "Looking cute. I've seen bigger pets in our capital city." The alien delegation erupted in thunderous laughter that shook the room's windows. Miller's hand instinctively tightened on his rifle. 25 years of Special Forces experience had taught him that underestimating an opponent was a deadly mistake. He'd seen smaller men take down larger opponents countless times, but he held his tongue. He was here to observe, not speak. The meeting continued for hours, but the tone had been set. Every human achievement was met with barely concealed mockery. The aliens seemed particularly amused by footage of tanks and aircraft. "Your vehicles are so adorable," Rex said, trying and failing to sound diplomatic. "They remind me of the toys my grandson plays with." As the day drew to a close, Miller noticed something interesting. Despite their mockery, the aliens kept asking questions about human military capabilities. They were especially interested in Special Forces operations, though they framed their questions as jokes. "And these Special Forces," one alien official asked, "they actually engage in combat. They're not just for entertainment." Miller caught Admiral Wilson's eye across the room. She gave him a subtle nod. She'd noticed it too. The aliens were gathering intelligence while trying to appear dismissive. That evening, as the alien ship hung like a second moon over the city, Miller sat in a secure briefing room with other military leaders. "They think we're weak," Admiral Wilson said, her voice firm. "Good. Let them think that. Every soldier knows that underestimating your opponent is the first step to defeat." Miller nodded, remembering countless missions where being underestimated had given his team the edge they needed. "Size isn't everything," he said quietly. "They'll learn that soon enough." Looking out the window at the massive alien ship, Miller felt a strange calm. Let them laugh. Let them mock. He'd seen that kind of arrogance before, and he knew exactly how it usually ended. The aliens had made a critical mistake today. They'd shown their contempt openly, honestly, and in doing so, they'd given humanity something powerful. the element of surprise. 3 days after first contact, the true purpose of the Stellar Empire's visit became clear. The morning sky over New York darkened as 5 more massive ships joined the first, their engines humming like distant thunder. Admiral Kate Wilson stood at the window of the UN Security Council chamber, her lined face reflecting in the glass. The ships hung in formation, a show of force that couldn't be clearer if they'd written it in the sky. "They're not even trying to hide their intentions anymore," General Thompson muttered beside her. The room was filled with military leaders from around the world, all watching the display of alien power above. The door opened, and Ambassador Rex ducked through, his massive frame making the heavy wooden doors look like dollhouse furniture. This time, he wore full military armor instead of diplomatic robes. Behind him came General Drac, the Empire's war commander, his scared face and missing eye speaking of countless battles. "Honored humans," Rex began, his translator making the words sound almost sincere. "The Stellar Empire has made its decision regarding Earth." Captain Miller, standing guard near the back wall, noticed how the alien soldiers positioned themselves around the room. Their stance wasn't diplomatic, it was tactical. "Your world," Rex continued, "is located in a strategically important sector. We cannot allow it to remain independent." He paused, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "The Empire offers you protection and guidance. Your military forces will be integrated into our auxiliary units, where they can serve in more suitable roles, perhaps as scouts or emergency response teams." Admiral Wilson's voice cut through the tense silence. "And if we decline this generous offer?" General Drac stepped forward, his armor creaking. "Then we will demonstrate why the Empire rules 1,000 worlds." His voice was deeper than Rex's, the translator struggling to convey his tone. "Your armies cannot hope to resist us. We can crush your cities like toys." The UN Secretary General stood up slowly. "The people of Earth will not surrender their freedom without freedom." Drac laughed, the sound like rocks in a grinder. "What freedom? Freedom to remain weak, to play at being soldiers." He walked to the window, pointing at the city below. "Your tallest buildings barely reach my ship's landing gear. Your strongest soldiers couldn't lift my sidearm. This isn't a negotiation, it's a courtesy call." Miller watched as several human diplomats shrunk in their seats, but others, especially the military personnel, sat straighter. He recognized that look. It was the same one he'd seen on soldiers who'd been pushed too far. "You have 48 Earth hours to submit your surrender," Rex announced. "After that, we will begin military operations to secure your world." He smiled, showing teeth like polished steel. "Don't force us to harm your cute little soldiers. It would be like stepping on children's toys." Admiral Wilson walked to the center of the room, her 5'6" frame tiny compared to the aliens, but her voice filled the chamber. "The United Nations Security Council will need to discuss this." "Discuss?" Drac snorted. "What is there to discuss? Look at yourselves. Your heads barely reach my waist. This isn't a war council. It's a parent telling children to go to bed." As the aliens turned to leave, Drac paused by Admiral Wilson. "I've conquered 32 worlds," he rumbled. "Each one thought they were special. Each one fell. Save your toy soldiers the embarrassment of defeat." The door closed behind them with a heavy thud. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Admiral Wilson turned to face the council, her eyes hard as steel. "They think size determines everything," she said quietly. "They see our physical stature and assume that's all we are." She looked around the room, meeting each person's gaze. "But they forget. Sometimes the smallest opponents are the deadliest, and they just made our decision very easy." Miller watched as heads nodded around the room. The aliens' arrogance had done what years of international politics couldn't. It had united Earth's military forces against a common enemy. As the alien ships cast their shadows over the city, humanity prepared for war. Not with fear, but with a cold, quiet determination that would soon teach the Empire a costly lesson about underestimating tiny opponents. The first alien dropships descended on a foggy morning near London. Lieutenant Tom Reed watched through his binoculars as 30 massive figures in powered armor stomped down the ramp, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground even half a mile away. "Look at these idiots," he whispered to his team. "No perimeter check, no scouts. They really think we're harmless." His 6-person Special Forces unit lay hidden in the underground tunnel system they'd prepared during the 48-hour ultimatum period. The alien soldiers stood in the open, their commander barking orders in their thunderous language. Each one carried a weapon that looked like it could double as a human battering ram. "Remember," Tom said into his radio, "we're not trying to win a straight fight. Hit and run. Use their size against them." His team had trained for this during the brief preparation time. They knew the tunnels. They knew the streets. Most importantly, they knew that being smaller meant being harder to hit. The first alien patrol moved into the city. 4 massive soldiers, each one carrying enough firepower to level a building. They walked down the main street, laughing as they kicked abandoned cars out of their way. Tom waited until they passed over his position. He pressed the detonator. The street collapsed beneath the aliens' feet. Their massive weight, combined with their powered armor, worked against them. They fell into the prepared pit, their size making it impossible to react quickly enough. "Now," Tom ordered. His team emerged from hidden positions, firing specially modified weapons at the aliens' joints and helmet seals, the weak points they'd identify from studying the diplomatic visit footage. The aliens tried to bring their massive guns to bear, but in the confined space of the pit, they kept bumping into each other. "They're too big to maneuver," Tom shouted encouragingly. "Keep firing." One alien managed to stand, raising his weapon. But he was so focused on the humans in front of him that he didn't notice the smallest member of Tom's team, Private Lisa Cooper, slip behind him through a narrow tunnel. She attached a magnetic charge to his armor's powered unit and disappeared back into the tunnel, a space too small for the alien to follow. The explosion disabled the alien's armor, leaving him trapped in the heavy metal suit. His teammates met similar fates as Tom's unit exploited every weakness their small size offered. "Team 2, you're up," Tom radioed as his unit melted back into the tunnel network. Across the city, similar scenes played out. The aliens' arrogance had led them to expect a conventional battle. Instead, they found themselves fighting shadows. Human soldiers appeared from sewers, maintenance tunnels, and air ducts, spaces the aliens had dismissed as too small to matter. Admiral Wilson watched the feeds from her command center. "Send the footage to all resistance units," she ordered. "They need to see it can be done." The alien commander, furious at losing an entire patrol to insects, ordered his remaining troops to form a tight defensive circle. It was exactly what the humans had hoped for. Tom's team watched from their hiding spots as the aliens bunched together, presenting a perfect target for the hidden artillery batteries. The aliens had assumed Earth's weapons were too small to harm their armor. They learned differently as precision-guided shells rained down on their position. "That's the thing about being small," Tom said to his team as they watched the aliens rush back to their dropship, leaving their wounded behind. "You learn to fight smart instead of just hitting hard." The dropship lifted off, retreating to the safety of their orbiting vessels. On the ground, human medical teams approached the disabled alien soldiers. Despite being enemies, they provided aid. Though the sight of small human doctors treating 9-foot aliens would have been comical if not for the battle's aftermath. Admiral Wilson's voice came over the General Command channel. "First engagement successful. All units, implement Phase 2. Let's show these giants that they picked a fight with the wrong tiny army." As Tom led his team back into the tunnel network, he smiled. The aliens had expected terrified civilians and toy soldiers. Instead, they'd found an enemy that could strike from any shadow, disappear into any crack, and turn their greatest strength, their size, into a devastating weakness. Major Robert Hayes studied the captured alien power armor in the underground lab beneath the Rocky Mountains. 3 weeks of fighting had taught humanity valuable lessons, and this was about to be the biggest one yet. "The size difference works in our favor again," he explained to Admiral Wilson, who watched from across the room. "Their armor is too big for one human to use, but perfect for a 2-person team." The modified armor lay on the workshop floor, its purple metal gleaming under the lights. Where one giant alien had stood, Hayes' team had rebuilt it to house 2 humans, one controlling the legs, the other managing the arms and weapons. "Show me," Wilson ordered. Hayes nodded to his test team. Surgeons Bill and Mary climbed into the armor through the back panel. Bill took the lower control station, while Mary settled into the upper compartment. The armor sealed with a hiss. "Systems online," Mary's voice came through the speakers. "It feels different, more responsive with 2 pilots sharing the load." The armor stood up smoothly, more smoothly than it had moved with its original alien pilot. Where the aliens had relied on brute strength to move their suits, the human team used careful coordination and balance. "The aliens don't understand," Hayes said, watching the armor move through its test sequence. "They built these suits to enhance their natural strength. But we're using them the way we've always used technology, to work together." Across the world, similar discoveries were being made. In Japan, engineers found that 3 humans could operate a captured alien tank better than its original crew. In Brazil, scientists discovered that the aliens' massive communication devices could be turned into mobile command centers for entire human platoons. They thought being bigger meant being better, Wilson mused, watching as the modified armor executed perfect combat moves. "They never considered that we've spent our entire history learning to overcome bigger opponents." Reports flowed in from the front lines. The aliens were losing their confidence. Their overwhelming size, once their greatest advantage, had become a liability. They couldn't enter buildings without ducking. They couldn't pursue humans into maintenance tunnels. Every piece of human infrastructure was perfectly sized to give Earth's defenders cover and mobility. "Update from London," an aide reported. "Lieutenant Reed's team captured another dropship. The aliens retreated so quickly they left their weapons behind." Hayes smiled. More salvage meant more opportunities to turn the Empire's technology against them. His teams were already working on adapting alien energy weapons for human use. "They're learning," Wilson said, reading from a tablet. "The Empire's commanders are starting to show fear. Their soldiers hesitate to leave their ships. They're calling our forces ghost warriors because we appear and disappear at will." The modified armor walked to the firing range. Mary aimed the massive alien rifle at a target, while Bill adjusted their stance for perfect balance. The shot was devastating and accurate, more accurate than any alien had managed. "Permission to begin mass production," Hayes requested. "We can have 50 suits modified by next week. 3-person teams are already training to use them." Wilson nodded. "Approved." "And Major?" She paused, a slight smile on her face. "Paint them Earth colors. Let's show them we're not just using their weapons. We're making them ours." The test team powered down the armor, its systems humming quietly. As they climbed out, both soldiers were grinning. "It's not about size," Bill said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It's about how you use what you have." "And what we have," Mary added, patting the armor's leg, "is centuries of fighting smarter, not bigger." Hayes watched as more test teams entered the lab, ready to learn the new systems. The aliens had given humanity their greatest weapons, all because they couldn't imagine tiny humans being a threat. "Send word to all commands," Wilson ordered. "Operation David begins at dawn. Let's show the Empire that humanity's greatest strength has always been turning weaknesses into advantages." Dr. Anna Brooks stood in the command center, watching the giant screens that showed alien communications they'd intercepted. After 5 weeks of war, the Empire's messages had changed dramatically. Gone were the jokes about tiny humans and toy soldiers. Now, Their transmissions were full of fear. "Play the latest intercept," she ordered. The screen lit up with a recording of an alien soldier's helmet camera. The massive warrior was running through a dark corridor, his breathing heavy. "They're everywhere." The alien's voice shook. "We can't see them, can't catch them. They slip through holes in walls, drop from ceiling spaces we thought were too small for life forms. The tiny devils are in the shadows, always watching, always." The transmission cut off with a burst of static. "Their greatest weakness," Anna explained to the gathered military leaders, "is their own arrogance. They can't accept being defeated by beings they see as inferior. It's breaking their minds." Admiral Wilson nodded. "And that's why Operation Ghost Story is working so well." The operation was simple but effective. Human forces would leave signs of their presence in alien camps. A moved object here, a mysterious sound there. The massive aliens would panic, knowing humans could fit into spaces they couldn't even see into. Latest report from Paris, an intelligence officer announced. 3 alien squads requested emergency evacuation after finding their ration packs replaced with human military MREs. No human forces were even in the area. Anna smiled. The psychological warfare was working better than she'd hoped. They're starting to see humans as almost supernatural. Their size, which they once saw as strength, now makes them feel exposed and vulnerable. On another screen, footage showed an alien patrol encountering a child's teddy bear propped against their vehicle. The soldiers fled, leaving the vehicle behind. They couldn't handle the idea that something so small could move freely through their defenses. "We've intercepted their new training materials," Anna continued, pulling up another file. "Look at how they describe human forces." The alien document showed drawings of human soldiers, marked with warning signs. "Caution. Human warriors can access any space larger than 60 units. All vents, pipes, and maintenance spaces must be sealed. Warning. Humans can operate in teams to control our own equipment. Danger. Their small size allows them to evade standard security measures." "They're starting to fear the dark," Wilson observed. "Every shadow could hide a dozen humans. Every tiny sound could be an attack coming." Reports kept flowing in. Alien soldiers were refusing to patrol alone. Some wouldn't enter buildings at all, afraid of the maze of human-sized spaces within. Their mighty army was crumbling not from physical defeats, but from the psychological torture of being stalked by an enemy they couldn't track. "Show them the Moscow footage," Anna requested. The screen showed an alien base at night. Small lights moved through the darkness, just flashlights carried by human scouts, but to the aliens, it looked like they were surrounded by countless enemies. The base's commander ordered an immediate retreat, abandoning valuable equipment. "We've turned their mockery back on them," Anna explained. "Remember how they laughed at our size? Now they're sending panicked messages to their high command about the human infestation they can't control." The next video showed an alien soldier trying to pursue a human team into a maintenance tunnel. The massive warrior got stuck, and his panic was visible as he thrashed around, imagining human soldiers surrounding him in the darkness. "Fear," Anna said quietly, "is the greatest weapon in any war." They feared nothing because they were the biggest. Now they fear everything because they're too big. Admiral Wilson stood up. "Send the psychological warfare reports to all commands. It's time for Phase 3. She looked at the screens showing retreating alien forces. "They came here thinking size meant power. Let's make them leave knowing that the deadliest predators aren't always the largest." As the command center hummed with activity, Anna watched another alien transmission come in. This one was simple, a request from a frontline commander to the Empire's high command. "The small demons are invisible, unstoppable. Request immediate withdrawal before they consume us all." Colonel Mike Stone watched the storm roll in over the Rocky Mountains, lightning illuminating the massive alien ships descending through the clouds. This was it, the Empire's last desperate attack on Earth's military command center. They're bringing everything they have, reported Lieutenant Reed through the radio. His scout teams were hidden in the mountain passes, watching the enemy deployment. At least 50 dropships. They're not being careful anymore. They're just angry. Mike smiled grimly. Anger meant mistakes. The aliens had lost their fear of humans, replacing it with rage at being humiliated by creatures they'd once mocked. That rage would be their final downfall. All units, execute Operation Thunderstrike. Mike ordered into his command radio. Remember your training. Let the mountain fight for us. The alien dropships landed in the valley, disgorging hundreds of massive troops in powered armor. Their heavy footsteps shook the ground as they formed up for the assault. At their head stood General Drac himself, his scared face twisted with fury. Your tricks end today, tiny ones. His amplified voice boomed across the valley. No more hiding in shadows. No more rat holes to crawl into. We will crush your mountain and everything in it. Mike watched through his binoculars as the alien army began their advance. They moved in tight formation, trying to support each other against the human tactics they'd learned to fear. But in doing so, they'd given Mike exactly what he wanted, a dense mass of troops in the perfect kill zone. Weather control status, he asked. Cloud seeding completed, sir, came the response. Storm is directly overhead. Temperature differential is at maximum. The aliens reached the first line of defense, a steep slope leading to the mountain base. They started climbing, their powered armor helping them traverse the difficult terrain. That's when Mike gave the signal. Release the water. Hidden reservoirs burst open above the alien army. Millions of gallons of water cascaded down the mountainside, instantly freezing in the artificially enhanced cold front. The aliens' massive weight and powered armor, usually their greatest assets, became deadly liabilities as they slipped and fell on the rapidly forming ice. Second phase, now. Mike ordered. Perfectly placed charges detonated along the mountainside. Not big explosions. Humans had learned that small charges in the right places were far more effective. The blasts triggered avalanches, sending tons of snow and rock down onto the struggling alien forces. Their size works against them again, Mike commented to his staff. They can't move quickly enough to escape the slides. The alien army's neat formation dissolved into chaos. Their huge weapons, designed to fight traditional battles, were useless against the mountain itself. Some tried to jet jump to safety using their armor's thrusters, only to be caught by powerful wind shears, another gift from the weather control team. Ground teams, move in, Mike commanded, just like we practiced. Human forces emerged from hidden bunkers, wearing white winter gear that made them nearly invisible in the snow. They moved in practiced formations, using modified alien weapons and their own smaller size to devastating effect. Where the aliens struggled in the deep snow, humans moved quickly and surely, striking from all directions. General Drac's voice boomed again, but this time with desperation. Stand and fight. They're just tiny. His words cut off as a precisely aimed shot from a captured alien cannon struck his position. Sir, Lieutenant Reed reported, their left flank is retreating. The right is cut off by the avalanches. Their center is in chaos. Mike watched as the mighty alien army fell apart. Their ships tried to provide air support, but the artificially enhanced storm made accurate fire impossible. Human anti-aircraft batteries, hidden in the mountainsides, picked off any ship that flew too low. This is what they never understood, Mike said, watching another alien unit break and run. It's not the size of the soldier that matters. It's the size of their courage, their skill, and their determination. As the battle turned into a rout, Mike allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had brought their mightiest army to crush Earth's defenders. Instead, they were being destroyed by the very things they'd mocked. Humanity's size, ingenuity, and ability to use nature itself as a weapon. The Great Hall of the United Nations had changed since first contact. The ceiling was now higher, the doors wider, and one side of the room had seats sized for 9-foot aliens. But today, It was the human-sized seats that held the power. Admiral Wilson sat at the center table, her small frame straight and proud. Across from her, General Drac hunched in a chair too small for his massive body, his once pristine armor scratched and dented. The mighty warrior who had conquered 32 worlds now couldn't meet the eyes of the tiny humans he had mocked. The Stellar Empire, Drac's translator crackled, formally acknowledges its defeat at the hands of Earth's armed forces. Each word seemed to cause him physical pain. We request terms for peace. Captain James Miller, standing guard just as he had during first contact, allowed himself a small smile. He remembered the aliens' laughter when they first saw human soldiers. No one was laughing now. "Our terms are simple," Admiral Wilson replied, her voice clear and confident. "The Empire will recognize Earth as a sovereign and independent world. All claims to our territory are forever surrendered." Drac nodded slowly. "Agreed." Furthermore, Wilson continued, "The Empire will establish a joint military training program. Your forces will learn from our tactical experts. In return, we will share our advances in adapting your technology." This made Drac look up sharply. "You would teach us? After you underestimated us?" Wilson finished for him. "Yes, because that's another thing you need to learn about humans. We know how to win, but we also know how to make peace." Ambassador Rex, now wearing simple diplomatic robes instead of armor, spoke up from his position behind Drac. "The Empire's military academy has already begun studying human warfare tactics. Your innovative use of size and terrain has revolutionized our strategic thinking." "Size," Miller said, speaking for the first time, "is just a number. It's what you do with what you have that matters." The peace treaty was signed within the hour. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Drac approached Miller. The giant warrior looked strange as he attempted to stand at attention before the much smaller human. "Captain," Drac grumbled, "I would be honored if you would consider leading the first joint training program. Our soldiers need to learn humility and skill." Miller looked up at the alien general, remembering how different this scene would have seemed just months ago. "I'd be happy to teach them," he replied. "First lesson will be how to fight someone bigger than you." Drac actually laughed, not the mocking laugh of their first meeting, but a genuine sound of respect. "In the Empire's eyes, Captain, there is no one bigger than humanity right now." Later that evening, Admiral Wilson stood with Miller on the observation deck, watching the alien ships prepare for departure. These ships no longer cast shadows of fear over the city. They were just vessels, coming and going in peace. "You know what the best part is?" Wilson asked, smiling. "They're going to tell this story across their empire. How the mighty alien armada was defeated by the tiny humans they laughed at. It's going to change how they see everything," Miller agreed. "Not just warfare, but their whole view of the universe. Maybe there are even smaller species out there, with even more to teach." As the sun set over Earth's first interstellar peace, news broadcasts across the planet celebrated. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but stronger. They had proved that true strength comes not from size, but from courage, intelligence, and the will to stand up against impossible odds. "Send a message to all commands," Wilson ordered her staff. "Tell them to keep their skills sharp and their minds sharper. We're not just Earth's defenders anymore. We're now the teachers of giants." The alien ships rose into the darkening sky, leaving behind a changed world. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not by being the biggest or the strongest, but by being exactly what they were: clever, adaptable, and absolutely unwilling to be underestimated ever again.